Across the lengthy history of the horror genre, it's not exactly false to come to the conclusion that the jump scare is associated with low effort and generally bad horror and horror movies. A quick motion plus a loud noise is pretty much always going to startle someone, and while they might feel entertained because of it, not everyone is going to share that reaction. Which is understandable, we all react differently to scares. But it oftentimes leads people to being unimpressed and seeing jump scares as the only form of horror in media. Even the really good ones like the iconic Exorcist 3 scare. But does this truly invalidate the jump scare as an addition to any horror media? Well, no. In fact, most horror movies do involve some sort of jump scare. I mean, even Sinners has some in the opening scene. So, jump scares aren't bad then. And I mean, yeah, at least I think so. As much as people would say otherwise, it's pretty difficult to make an entire movie of slow burn horror. Especially since you're limited to making the beginning quote-unquote scares of the movie usually background and environmental stuff. I mean, that's my jam 100%, but you've got to spike the cortisol of the general audience sometimes. You never know. Gerald might have been dragged to the cinema by his daughter and need a quick jolt to remind him what it feels like to be alive. Also, Weapons came out last year, and that kind of invalidates everyone that still complains about jump scares in my opinion. Point is, even in movies with great horror build-up and tension, use jump scares for the high cortisol scenes. Including a very solid addition into the fire horror genre lineup we've had this past year, Hokum. Hokum comes from the mind of Damien McCarthy, who is apparently a really good horror director. He's made Oddity and Caveat before, and both were very well received. But unfortunately, all of his films contain one of my mum's worst fears, the Irish. Thankfully, Hokum finally has a relatable yank to be the butt of every tourist joke, so I can feel right by pretending any hate towards British tourists isn't justified. Hokum stars Adam Scott as Ohm Bauman, a writer currently thinking of an ending to his most popular series, the Conquistador trilogy. And after writing it an ending, he decided to take a trip to Bilberry Woods Hotel in Ireland, where his parents went on their honeymoon. See, Ohm's parents have both passed, and he hopes to spread their ashes by a tree his mum posed by for a photo. Out there, he meets welcoming hotel owner Mal, played by Peter Coonan, who gives him the lay of the land and seems a little starstruck for someone meeting a Stephen King stand-in. Who am I kidding? If Alan Wake showed up, I'd be hooting and hollering too. Among the hotel staff is Fergal, played by Michael Patrick, the silliest character Ohm meets, and the deadliest considering the guy seems to hate goats. There's also the bellhop, Albie, who shows Ohm to his room and even tries to get on his good side and get a writing draft checked over. However, Ohm is a dick. Maybe he's actually an outie. And finally, Fiona, played by Florence Ordesh. Definitely the most cordial of the characters despite not being afraid to call Ohm out for being an asshole. And Fiona's pretty important to the story too, considering she gives Ohm a lot of helpful info about the surrounding area. And the history behind the hotel itself. But most of all, why the honeymoon suite is always blocked and locked off from the public. Apparently, a witch haunts there. And honestly, I don't really know why a witch would only haunt a segment of a building compared to the whole thing, but maybe she's just really territorial. Anyway, as a writer, an inquisitive mind, and someone who overall has an adverse instinct to what people say, Ohm wants to investigate that place. And boy, he has a PS2 survivor horror protagonist hell of a time. I had a damn good time with Hokum. I'd seen the trailer, but pretty much the only thing that stuck in my head was this. And this is the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. But I hadn't heard any reviews, so I didn't have any real expectations going in, which is probably for the better, because surprises are always going to be scarier. And scary it was indeed. As you can probably tell from today's opening tangent, Hokum has some really, really good scares. Both using jump scares and just excellent environmental work, tension build-up and camera placement. The movie is being compared a lot to Silent Hill, and I think that's apt. There's an air of Silent Hill 2 in there, but Silent Hill 4 seems to be a little bit closer point of comparison to me. If you really want the game it reminds me of though, then Alan Wake 2 is right there. And that's my fourth favorite game of all time, so that's a high compliment from me. I mean, yeah, there's an American writer who is kind of jaded in a bit of a Stephen King standing, going through hell, but even the area design and survival horror-esque decisions Ohm has to make are really engaging to see. He's actually a pretty smart protagonist, and that's really hard to write sometimes while still being able to put them in peril. Damien is very clearly well-versed in how to put these characters in situations where they're forced to confront horror. Because that's exactly what happens here. Sure, there's some, if he hadn't done this, he could have just gone home, but this is chalked up less to stupid decision-making and more for noble reasons because Ohm actually has some pretty sweet motivations. He doesn't just try to get into the honeymoon suite on a whim, but I'm not going to spoil why. I'm not normally scared by horror movies. Good sound design instead of jump scares can do it to me though, and Glad has definitely had me sitting there like this in the Dolby Theatre for Weapons. But Hokum was hitting that spot for me. It really did spook me. And I mean, it does help that I had this thing in the back of my mind, which is responsible for the two hardest hitting jump scares in the movie. And the greatest plot development that really wrapped together what Hokum was trying to say for me. I didn't know what to expect, but I had no idea there'd be such a genuinely quite positive message. Mild spoilers ahead, but Hokum to me feels like an anti-self-inflicted death PSA, and I hate that I can't just use the proper term because YouTube gets mad about it. I don't make these videos for kids, I make them for depressed teenagers who use Letterboxd way too much. But everything felt like a representation of confronting your own inner demons. This is just my reading, so I could be completely off, but it highlights a lot of things that tend to factor into the leading up to doing something like that. Pushing people away, being actively hostile, getting your affairs in order, not being able to get the proverbial ghosts of the past out of your head, searching for any kind of meaning and eventually losing the will to be positive at all. Hokum tries to say that sometimes all it takes is a friend who won't give up on you, or one that just checks in at the right time. Because we don't see the battles people are going through every day, and whether it's reckoning with the death of their childhood or hiding from a potential witch, nobody has to fight alone. I really love the use of the camera here too. It's able to set up the hotel as an environment we get used to and explore for different reasons. It really feels like a real location that we become familiar with, so it can be used later in the more active sequences. Plus, the angles are really uncomfortable. There's a lot of close-ups of Adam Scott's face, and his performance is really good here. I've never really seen him in another horror role before. I didn't watch Hellraiser Bloodlines, but it's funny as fuck that he tried to audition for a role in a later Hellraiser movie. I have heard that he's great in Severance though, which I still need to watch, among like 400 other shows. He manages to be a believable asshole that we learn more about throughout the movie to explain why he is the way he is. And I really liked Owen by the end. I wanted him to succeed. The other characters are neat, but not too much to write home about. I do like Jerry though. Life is Strange 2 told me that hobos are cool as fuck for real, and Jerry is no exception. Overall though, Hokum is just a damn good horror movie that I'm trying my best not to talk spoilers for. You deserve to get the shit scared out of you on your own terms. I laughed, I cried, it moved me, Bob. But this is a really solid entry into 2026's Horror Legion, up there with The Bone Temple, Send Help, and Ready or Not 2 in my opinion. Although it's hard to choose which of those I like the most, it's getting great reviews across the board, made its budget back on the opening weekend, which is crazy. I hope it gets more people interested in Damien McCarthy's filmography like it has me. I've heard of that thing he does where a character will tell a story being fully open about how the event they're describing scared the shit out of them, and yet it still surprises you with this scare, is a through line in his other movies, Oddity and Caveat. And I'll definitely be checking them out as I work through my watch list this summer. Go watch it and have fun and then not sleep for 2 days, as intended. 8 out of 10. I'm going back to my obsession waiting room. I'm so fucking hyped, guys. I cannot wait. Like, you're giving me a Spielberg alien movie, a Nolan blockbuster, and an adaptation of one of my favorite comics of all time in the same summer. But no, I want the indie horror movie with a cast of actors I've never heard of, and I want it now. If you need me, I'll be in my cryo sleep tank set to wake me up in a week. And if you don't want, well, this fucking thing to stare at you anymore, I'd suggest you subscribe. YouTube algorithm isn't kind to smaller content creators, and any interaction really helps us. If you like this video, please like it, and subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content. I'm finally done with uni for the year, so I'm free to work on whatever I need to. I've got some big projects in the works, and I'm going to try to stick to my bi-weekly reviews again. So stay tuned, thank you so much for all the support, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.